Hello and welcome to this lesson about factoring trinomials, part 1. The learning target for this video is learning how to factor basic quadratic polynomials. So now what we're going to do is focus on a tactic or a method that works for quadratic polynomials. And so what a quadratic polynomial is ax squared plus bx plus c. And so there's a certain tactic and a technique that we use for factoring anything that's in this form. And then it will help us in units further down the road. Now, today, this is part 1. So for part 1, a is always going to equal 1. So what we're going to have here is x squared plus bx plus c. In the part 2 video, we'll address what we do when a is not 1. But when a is 1, it's much easier to kind of figure out the mechanics for how all this works. Now, getting to the question, why are we factoring? Our goal is essentially to unfoil. That's what we're doing with factoring these quadratics or these trinomials, is we want to unfoil. So we want to take this x squared plus bx plus c, and we want to turn it into x plus or minus something times x plus or minus something, depending on what the signs are that we have. We want to take this string of addition or potentially subtraction, because it could be minus signs, and turn it into an expression of just multiplication. And again, in the next unit, you'll see why we're doing this. But that's ultimately the goal, is to take a bunch of addition or subtraction, one big expression of it, unfoil it, and turning it into a big multiplication problem. So let's talk about how we're going to do this. Again, let's kind of jot down what we have here. We're going to be looking at x squared plus bx plus c. And again, technically plus or minus, because they could be minuses, stuff like that. So how we do this, it all starts with c. We can only use factors of c. So whatever that number is. At that point in time, so that's step 1. Step 2 is to work on, and put it in quotes here, combine the factors of c to make b. And so then we're going to take a look at b. All right. Now again, I'm using the word combine because it depends on the signs that we have here. And when I do some examples, it'll make more sense. So what I'm saying though is, like, if we want to, we can let one of the potential factors be negative. We can let them both be negative. They might both be positive. It depends on the trinomial we have. And so we're going to be doing a combination to try to make it equal b. And so now, enough talk about how we do this all theoretically. Let's get to the nitty-gritty and let's do an example. So for the first example, let's say we have something like x squared plus 7x plus 12. Fairly straightforward one. So it starts with c. That would be 12. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off to the side here, and I'm just going to jot down some factors of 12. I have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Now what I want to do is take a look at each one of these sets of factors and ask myself, can I make 7 from this? And so that's where I'm going next. I've now made my factors, and I look at the middle term, the b term, 7. Which one of these can I combine? Well, 1 and 12 don't work. 2 and 6 get me close, but don't work. 3 and 4 do work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to I'm going to unfoil. That's what factoring quadratics is. We're unfoiling. So we're going to put an x and an x at the beginning of our parentheses. And now we'll put 3 and 4. And since this is positive, that is positive, it'll be x plus 3, x plus 4. Now let's just do a quick variation of this problem. X squared minus 7x plus 12. Same thing, I would look at 12 and I want some factors. Now, we already know how this is going to work. 3 and 4 work. But the difference here is I'm going to use 3 and 4. I also have my x's on the left and each of the little binomials. But because this is a negative 7, I want it to be minus 3 minus 4. That way when I combine the inside and the outside, I'll have negative 3x and negative 4x, which when you combine them will give you negative 7x. But when you multiply them together, you're still left with plus 12. Now, let's do another example, and let's maybe kick it up a notch here. This right here, fun fact, one of my favorite trinomials of all time. All right, so let's take a look at something like this. X squared minus 5x plus 6. Now, I love it because it seems simple, but there's so many different possibilities you have with it. So again, we're going to focus on our C term. What are the factors of 6? Well, we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3. These are the only 4 numbers we have as a possibility for putting in that second spot here. So we're going to have x, and then it's either got to be 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Now it's all about how can we combine it to make negative 5. Well, we could actually combine either one of these to make 5. If I wanted to, I could go 1 minus 6 or negative 2 minus 3. So I got to think, which one is it going to be? And that's where we have to look at the signs on these, or in between our trinomial terms. Since I want this to be a positive 6, that means that whatever sign I put in my binomials have to be the same, because it's got to be a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. And so here it's going to be negative and negative because this one's also a negative, meaning I want negative 2, negative 3, or x minus 2, x minus 3. And that would be my answer. Let's do one more example, or another variation of it. X squared plus 5x minus 6. All I've done is I've swapped the signs. The numbers I can use are still 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So x, x. Now, again, I got to ask, how can I get 5? Well, I could do 6 minus 1, or I could do 2 plus 3. But the thing is, if I tried 2 and 3, they have the same sign, and when I multiply them together, I won't get negative 6. So that means that I need these to be different signs. So one will have to be plus, the other one will have to be minus. So I'm going to want plus 6 minus 1. That way when I combine the inside and the outside terms, I'm left with 5x. Now, just when you didn't think you could get any better, it does. Whoops. Let's do yet another variation. X squared minus 5x minus 6. You're starting to see why this is my favorite trinomial. We have 1, 6, 2, 3. These are my possibilities for what's going to go in here. But now the thing is, when I combine them, I need to get negative 5. So I could go with 1 minus 6, or again, negative 2 minus 3, or technically negative 3 minus 2. Either way works. But here, I need the result to be negative. So again, I need a plus and a minus. Oops, let me do it the same way I did it before. So plus, minus. Now the difference is, I don't want plus 6, because if I have plus 6, I'll get positive 5. So I want plus 1, and then negative 5. Oops, not negative 5, negative 6. That way when I do combine them, I'll get negative 5 there. But at the same time, when I multiply them, I'll get negative 6. Now, I can imagine what you're thinking. How am I supposed to sort through all of these different possibilities and combinations? Well, this is an exception, all right? Very few trinomials could be so similar. A lot of them are going to be a lot more obvious. And so let's just do one final example to show you what I mean by that. We could have something like x squared plus 7x minus 18. So here we look at 18. It's got to be, let's see here, 1, 18, 2, 9, 3, 6. Those are our options. Make our parentheses, x and x. I see that I have a minus sign here, so that means that one of these will be plus, one of them will be negative, and then I ask, how can I combine to get 7? Well, 1 and 18, not going to happen. 3 and 6, not going to happen. 9 and 2, so I have two options. It could either be 9 minus 2 or 2 minus 9. Which one gives me positive 7? 9 minus 2. So I need a plus 9 minus 2. And so here, there aren't as many possible combinations, so they are going to be more straightforward. And the more you practice, the more you do, the easier these will get over time. But this is the main thing I want you to take away from all of this is that it all starts with C. We got to look at factors of C. At that point in time, then there is a little bit of element of luck in trying to find the right combination to combine them to make B. So good luck with your homework or practice, and let me know if you have any questions.